And next we have community development.
Good morning. Mireya Turner, Community Development Department. I wanted to take advantage of my 5 to 7 minute slice of the pie to highlight our management team. So I dragged down with me our Chief Building Official, Bill Collins, our Cannabis Program Manager, Andrew Emeling, and perfect timing, our Code Enforcement Manager, Marcus Beltramo. So we're going to kind of tag team our presentation for you today. Starting with building and safety. I'll get out of his way.
Good morning, Bill Collins, Chief Building Official. So the last year, Building and Safety has been working on getting all of our inspectors more certifications. The last year, we've certified each one of our building inspectors in a new discipline and both of our plans examiners. As well, our permitting staff is working to get certifications as well, and we have just recently gotten our first certified permit technician. We also, we got the BSEG's rating this year, which is a lot of work for our staff. Supposed to help with being able to get some monies through some grants and things like that. Took us, I'd say probably about a month of work. Spent a lot of time working on that, trying to get records, numbers on accurate numbers for the records, things like that. The goals for next year, we still have more certifications we want to get for our permitting staff and for our inspectors. And then we're working to get our records retention set up on Laserfiche. So we've actually sent out for our first bid. And so hopefully by this time next year, we will have all of our stuff scanned in that's actually sitting in the office right now. And we'll have a new procedure going to scan intake stuff as it's coming in. Thank you.
So we have a couple accomplishments up there from planning specific to the varied types of trainings that are ongoing for all of our planning staff, as well as establishing a central staff person to watch over the Public Record Act requests and the complaints so that those don't get lost. But what I couldn't fit in there was a little bit about cannabis, so I'm going to pass this over to Andrew.
Hello, I'm Andrew Emeling, the Cannabis Program Manager. I'm going to cover 3 main points. I have a lot of updates, but Mireya kind of told me to keep it concise, so 5 to 7 minutes. So with that said, I'll break it down into 3 parts. The first one concerning our pending applications. We have adopted a few new approaches with our applications, especially concerning our initial studies and our environmental review. We've developed a new template that goes into more detail on all categories that CEQA is concerned with, not just what staff in the past had been focused on areas that we expect to have impacts and where we seek mitigation measures. We're also expanding on areas where we don't expect those impacts, but we're explaining in much more detail why, with the hopes that we'll have much more confident conclusions on our recommendations. In addition to that, working with LACO, we have incorporated peer review on the hydrology reports that we are receiving. They have a hydrogeologist on staff who is able to examine those and provide an expert opinion on each one. So with that said, our conclusions, our recommendations for approval should be much more robust moving forward, as the county has requested. We have completed all of our annual inspections for this year. Our staff did a really great job of getting out there, and for the most part, our approved projects that are operating with just a few minor issues. We have seen a few projects that did have some violations of high severity, and we're exploring whether or not the appropriate course would be a recommendation for revocation of the permit. Moving on to the Cannabis Ordinance Task Force. I have been meeting with each of the task force members to kind of get their feedback on how things are going. Overall, everyone's pretty satisfied. They recognize there was a bit of a slow start in the beginning, but they are pretty happy with the progress and the approach that we are taking now. We are currently concluding recommendations on ag-exempt and temporary structures, and we will next be moving on to address issues on retail sales as requested by this board. Following that, many of the members are looking forward to getting the opportunity to then get back to taking a comprehensive and holistic approach to the overall cannabis ordinance. And finally, we have grants. The planning division and the cannabis program specifically is now overseeing a lot of the deliverables for the LJAG, the Local Jurisdiction Assistant Grant, as well as the equity grant from the DCC, Department of Cannabis Control. With that said, I have been in touch with the California State Auditor. They're going to be conducting an audit for the first time this year on the LJAG, the Local Jurisdiction Assistant Grant. And furthermore, we've had some meetings with DCC concerning the equity grant and the LJAG grant. And one positive note, they are looking for, different recipients, grantees of the equity grant to highlight those who are making a positive impact. So far, they've only had a few cases from the larger cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Oakland. We do have a few candidates in mind, especially with what they're doing in terms of the environment. So we're hoping to be able to highlight some of them, but I won't get into detail because that's still all in the works. So,
I have a question. What does the backlog look like now?
oh, yes. Well, we are currently at, as of my last update with the Planning Commission, the backlog isn't a whole lot different. We are at about 119 pending projects with 2 just recently approved at the last Planning Commission. We've had about 6 withdrawn. And some of the other updates that I wasn't going to, get into the weeds with, but we are taking a kind of a simultaneous processing approach to where we were trying to focus on some of the older projects that have just been kind of hanging around and get those moved forward. Well, there's a reason they're old. They have a lot of issues. There's a lot of things with them that just, keep stalling the project, and the feasibility of some of those are questionable. So with that, we've kind of divvied it up. We've dedicated a few staff members to get the ball rolling on some of our more recently submitted applications, especially the ones from last year that were submitted. We're noticing the more recent submissions are just, again, more robust applications, and they've learned from past experiences. So they're a little bit easier to move forward.
So we've had a number of recent submissions from 2022?
Well, when I say recent, they're about a year ago.
Okay,
So
that's what I was curious.
we're still addressing, I think we still have a 2019 pending application, which recently finally withdrew because they realized that, the issues around it they were not moving forward. We have a handful that are still left from 2020, and now we're getting into the 2021 and about 20 or so from 2022. So
That's a significant amount of applications for.
it is, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. And then just a follow-up question, how helpful was the satellite software this year?
It played a bigger role in annual inspections and code enforcement. Code enforcement utilizes it for the most part, but with us, we did, out of our 109 approved projects at the time over the growing season this year, we had roughly between 20 and 30 that opted out of cultivating, and another 20 to 30 that requested to reduce their cultivation square footage for their canopy area. And the software was pretty instrumental in determining that, those figures that they were reporting to us were in fact accurate. And it saved a lot of staff time. We didn't have to go out to those locations. We could check via satellite for the outdoor operations.
Okay, great, thanks. Did anyone else have any, Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just very quickly on the backlog. So we do have some newer applications,
yeah.
but just to clarify for everyone, we still have kind of a de facto roadblock in terms of any new applicant must have a water board permit as of whatever that cutoff date is.
Correct, yes. We have discussed this with the task force, or, I'm sorry, were you?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll just plow ahead. You're way over 5. So backlog, yes, still a hard stop as far as those people who don't have a water board permit hanging around for 3 years plus.
Sure.
So progress to be made on opening up avenues for new applications.
Yes.
And that's just it. I wanted to highlight, not only is there a backlog, there's a hard stop on new applications unless you have that prerequisite water board permit in place.
That is correct. And of the backlog, I would like to point out of, roughly about 119 at this point pending applications, nearly half of them, I believe 52 at our latest count, are still deemed incomplete. They haven't submitted all the information that we need to move those forward. And our current ordinance doesn't have a mechanism like the state where if in 90 days we don't receive anything, or we don't hear back from you in 180 days, they close the project. We don't have a mechanism to do that. So we are, working on approaching, reaching out to these applicants, exhausting every possibility of moving them forward, and then potentially bringing them forward with a denial without prejudice, so they could come and resubmit and pick up where they left off. So that is a big factor. So.
Great.
Yeah, and last thing on that, and don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, and obviously the task force is going to take the work on as it's being presented to them, but I have had anyways some preliminary discussions with California Cannabis Authority, which is a more of a state level organization. They may have some thoughts on how they may be able to assist. I don't want to box anyone in, any staff, including our treasurer tax collectors, to the potential utility of that organization, but I do want to point out that it does exist. And when we get closer to that more 30,000-foot level rewrite of the ordinance, I'd be interested in hearing some feedback on whether that organization might be helpful to us. So thank you for that.
So Marcus is going to come and close us up with the code enforcement accomplishments for this year. Also, you'll note there are a few stats from the Roadmap Task Force. A more robust update will be presented to the board on the Roadmap Task Force in February.
Good morning. My name is Marcus Beltramo. I'm the manager of the Code Enforcement Division. Right now, we have 4 fully certified code enforcement officers. I don't believe the county's had that in the past. And by June, all our code enforcement officers will be fully certified. So we'll have the training. Now everybody will also have the experience. So we're anticipating 2023 will be a better year for code enforcement. We've grown over the last year. We've learned about Lake County. In the code enforcement world, each jurisdiction is different. And Lake County is unique. And so we've learned the uniqueness of Lake County and how to deal with those. So we look to be more proficient moving forward. Also, we're getting mobile printers and laptops. The equipment started to come in. We're starting to install it. We're starting to implement procedures so that we can be more efficient also in code enforcement issues. We've also branched out and formed stronger relationships with our sister departments, environmental health, water resources, for example. We've strengthened that bond. We've learned to work together, and that's also helped us accomplish a lot more. And I think moving forward, as we get better, our sister departments we get better working with our sister departments, we'll be more effective moving forward. So our thing is just to get better, get more proficient, more efficient, and 2023, our goal is to resolve all complaints that are received. Another thing is educating the public what information we need, how to file complaints, how to get in touch with us, and so that we can move forward in trying to attain compliance.
So I want to make sure that the zone of benefit is included in the area of.
I apologize. So the benefit zones, once we work that plan out and we have an understanding, we will be moving forward. That will be a priority. That is something that needs to be done. We've reached out to Mike Ciancio and his crew over there as part of being part of that resolution to moving forward with that program, but that is a priority. So our priority issues, Roadmap Task Force, cannabis, all abandoned vehicles and RVs off the major roadways, and then the benefit zones. Those are our 4 priorities that we're going to be focusing our energy and resources to address those issues.
We could go to the next slide, please. We've already covered the code enforcement section. We'll move on to building.
Building did all this.
Building already did it too. Go to the next slide. I'm going to close up with planning, the exciting things that were coming this year. Already talked about benefit zones. That is one of our top priorities, and it won't just be code. Any support that I can or planning can lend in that to keep that moving forward is available. We have a number of advanced planning projects scheduled to launch in 2023. The housing element, as you may know, is due at the state by this August, so that's going to be our highest and top priority amongst all of the general plan element and general plan related projects. Additionally, we'll start working on the climate vulnerability analysis. This is the survey that is going to inform our safety element. It'll also touch on the next local hazard mitigation plan through the Office of Emergency Services, and it helps to inform a climate action plan should we decide to launch that sometime soon. We're currently working on a housing-related zoning code update. That should be concluded later on this summer. We are working towards codifying the zoning ordinance in Municode. The county code is currently maintained by a Municode company, which I think they might have changed their name recently, but doesn't matter. Anyway, so and it gets updated on a regular basis. All the ordinances that get adopted that affect the code get sent to them, so that keeps our website updated. This has not included the zoning ordinance ever, as far as I know. And that's why you have like a link to the code, but then you get this other link to the zoning ordinance. It's because it's always been maintained in-house. We're going to work on getting that sent over to Municode so that it will then come up to date and be maintained in a timely manner. And the rest of the year, I think Andrew already covered it, our task force is going to continue working on cannabis policy review. They've gone over a number of ordinances. Their next focus will be on the retail regulations for review, and so hopefully we'll get something back to you in that soon. I wanted to just close with extending a thanks to the departments that we rely on every day for review of our projects. When I came back, we found that there were a number of systems that had just, with everybody being overworked and so busy and understaffed, a number of our review systems needed a little improvement. And so I am very thankful that the department heads have been so supportive in getting that back, because we really need their input in order to produce a comprehensive discretionary permit. I think that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Crandall?
Just one last question about the area plans. I know that we were looking at that. I don't know if this is, did you say that or did I miss it? Or?
No, I didn't say it. I'm glad you brought it up. So what I'm working on is an RFP that I'll be taking to admin for their review shortly. And we're going to just toss in all the general plan related projects that we have into one big old enchilada and see if we can get a planning company that is staffed well enough to keep our projects moving forward in a very tight timeline. The area plans all must be updated prior to the general plan update to make sure that each community's vision is reflected and synchronized with the overall county vision, which is the general plan. So I don't know if we're going to get started on those area plans this year, but it is definitely within my 5-year plan. All to be done by 2026.
And just to follow up with that, you had mentioned engaging the municipal advisory councils to help with some of the legwork and the beginning work
Yes.
for those area plans.
I have an idea, and I'm not sure if it works out in reality, but right now in my head, it seems really cool. And that is when we get the contractor that's going to work on the area plans to actually sort of develop a checklist. Because a good portion of each area plan actually contains data that isn't vision, it's this is our community. These are the things, these are what we're highlighting. These are our things of value, our natural assets, things like that. So what I'd like to see the contractor do is assemble a checklist that will help to compile that data for every single area plan. It's going to be pretty standard. And then get those distributed to our town halls and our municipal councils. Because I know that every community is very anxious about getting that area plan started as soon as possible. And so this would give them something that they could do that would then be helpful when we start coming to work on the vision part. We'll see if that works in reality. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Supervisor Green?
Just a quick thank you. Lots of slides, way over 5-7 minutes, but I think that reflects the importance of CDD, and I just want to compliment Director Turner. Since joining, I think she has signaled a sense of stability and a can-do attitude, and after years and years of several bumps in the road and stuff like that. I'm very excited to see the current direction that CDD is under, and excited to see more coming in 2023, if only because I know in addition to everything on your slides, there may be 1 or 2 or 12 other subjects coming to you that were not anticipated. So I appreciate everything you put in here so far, and buckle up, because I imagine 23 is going to be even busier than what has been presented here. So,
Thank you. Thank you. And I welcomed everybody's questions. I didn't count that in my 5 to 7 minutes, so I think I was pretty close. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And next we have County Counsel.
All right, well, thank you. Anita Grant, County Counsel. It's always difficult for County Counsel's office to point to a list of accomplishments simply because our accomplishments are assisting other departments. Some of those matters remain confidential. Some of those matters became very involved, and it doesn't seem appropriate to point out, well, this department we had to work with for 6 months, and et cetera. So we don't do that. We tend to be quiet about our involvement. But you will see under this slide that there are numerous accomplishments, which I've just done by doing very bland statistics in terms of the type of work we do. A county counsel's office is a generalist office, so we are involved in almost everything. And we draft contracts, we draft ordinances, resolutions, we review contracts, ordinances, and resolutions. And those reviews are not simply signing my name or signing a deputy's name on the bottom of the page. Oftentimes that requires a great deal of work. There are legal requirements, there are issues with regard to compliance issues with various grants, et cetera, all of which we have to review and assist the departments with. In terms of just numbers of contracts, I've stated about 700 for last year. That's in addition to all the other work I do, the office does as a whole. Generally, I've been doing the documents because I think 12-hour days are normal, but the issues with regard to land use, we've got, I think, all of my staff, legal staff. We have one attorney, Nicole Johnson, who focuses on that primarily, and she's excellent. But all the attorney staff have a very good and solid understanding of land use so that we can pitch hit for each other. We found that to be very important, both in juveniles and probates as well, because for about half a year last year, my attorney staff was reduced by half. So for us, that's the same as if you're staffing any large department, just 50% of them were gone because people moved on to other things. We also were without a risk person for approximately 8 months in 21, 22, and we had lost one of our administrative assistants for clerical several years ago. Your board was very good to give another position of attorney staff, which will be the first addition to attorney staff in 30 years. Actually 31 years. It might be longer, but I only know 31 because that's how long I've been here. You'll see we're very busy with juvenile dependencies, which are abused and neglected children, a very important area of law, 25 probate and conservatorships, and complex projects. By those, I mean those projects that require ongoing commitment of months, sometimes years, to bring to fruition with departments. So that is what we accomplish. Again, a thumbnail sketch without going into detail. Your board generally knows everything we're doing, so certainly the information isn't lost on you, but again, the confines of confidentiality make it a little difficult for me to feel comfortable going into detail. As far as points of emphasis, as you know, I'm going to be retiring in a couple of months, so I don't really have major points of emphasis other than getting staff ready for that. Also, points of emphasis for us depend upon what your board and departments move forward, because our office assists, helps, advises, counsels on all of those areas. We don't generally self-generate. We provide information to your board. One of the things I'll do before I leave is giving you some information on Brown Act updates and the Brown Act itself. We'll also be the office will be bringing a number of things to the board over the next couple of months that will hopefully set the stage for future actions. And again, I mentioned Nicole, and I'm sitting here realizing that I have left out several lawyers, Lloyd Guintavano, who is the senior deputy, as well as Carlos Torres, who's handling probates, conservatorships, and anything else you throw at him. Ali Gorfelian, who is handling the juvenile cases and has a great passion for the work, but she's hopefully just as passionate about all the other assignments that she has to do, because again, in our office, one of the most important things is to be able to pivot. So, and we do that. I will say that when it comes to recruitment issues, the thing that my office focuses on, and I would think other offices may want to, is that 2 years, 3 years of experience in this county counsel's office gives you a scope and breadth of experience that it would take you 10, maybe 15 years in a larger government office, because you tend to be pigeonholed. Here, we can't afford to pigeonhole anyone, so all of us can do pretty much anything.
Thank you, Anita. Any other comments from the board? Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. Before joining the board, I worked with DSS, CWS, and managed to attend many of our juvenile dependency court hearings virtually, and it's an important job, and it was news to me that it was part of county counsel's office. And so I want to highlight the hiring of Alik as a dedicated counsel for juvenile dependency to be a major accomplishment. I have seen lots of pivoting before her hire, and I imagine more pivoting will happen. But I just want to highlight the vital importance of the juvenile dependency process. I appreciate the work that's been done to solidify county counsel's contributions to that. I hope part of that will be advocacy to systemic change. I think part of the difficulties I saw during my time there was just there aren't enough court days, there aren't enough attorneys. So just as the county counsel's office needed to dedicate resources, I hope the Superior Court and those people that are tasked with making sure that the juvenile dependency process runs smoothly as a whole will be sensitive to the concerns that Lake County has. We need more court days, and that's it. Thank you very much for everything you've done. We'll do the little happy dance for your retirement later on, but everything that your office does has been spot on, high quality work, no matter what I've seen, no matter the subject. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. And other than when we were drastically reduced by staff, people don't necessarily stay for 20, 30 years anymore. They'll leave after 4 or 5 years, which is to be expected. But we've always had an attorney dedicated to juvenile. I think that, again, over the last couple of years, because of staff shortages, there was more pivoting than the office had ever experienced before, and certainly not something that we want to continue. So we'll continue with that dedicated.
Supervisor Crandall?
Well, definitely won't be doing a happy dance because you've covered so much since I've been in the position, and I appreciate everything you've done as a quarterback for that office, and I think the 49ers could have used you this last weekend.
All right, thank you, Anita.